right, thanks everyone for joining us today. We're going to get started. I'm excited today to talk about smart compactor monitoring, and we have a great panel today with two of the experts in the field. I'm excited to be joined by Scott Brown from SmartTrash and Robert Finn from RecycleSmart. And we're going to start off with an overview of the SmartTrash systems, which is one of the compactor monitoring systems that RecycleSmart uses in order to make our compactors more efficient and to streamline operations for our clients across Canada. And we've extensive experience working with this system with hundreds of them installed across the country. And we're excited today to talk to Scott about the benefits that these can bring to your operations. So introducing Scott Brown, founding principal and chief technology officer of SmartTrash. Scott Brown is the co-founder and chief technology officer of SmartTrash. And Scott has spearheaded the creation of the SmartTrash management system. Now in its sixth generation, SmartTrash is the world's most sophisticated wireless telemetry-based technology for managing trash, equipment, and systems. SmartTrash is a wholly owned subsidiary of American Trash Management, based in beautiful San Francisco. And Scott's also the co-founder and president of American Trash Management, which provides innovative solutions to complex trash problems for all varieties of trash-generating entities, residential properties, malls, mixed-use developments, offices, supermarkets, retailers, industrial complexes, hospitals, and schools. Prior to forming ATM, Scott founded Microbio Resources, a venture capital-backed business. Microbio was the first company in the world to develop and produce industrial chemicals and specialized nutrients from single-cell agricultural technology. The company also developed the controlled ecological environment required for the algal cells to maximize their production capabilities. That sounds like interesting stuff, Scott. We're going to have to bring you on again for a whole separate webinar on all that fun stuff in terms of algae cells. I don't even know if I said that properly.
Alga, yeah.
Alga, sorry.
Yeah. Algae is the plural, algae is the singular. Well, good day, Colin. Thank you for having us. We appreciate the opportunity to talk about SmartTrash with all of the participants. So I think I'd like to do is jump right in and tell you a little bit about SmartTrash. The controls here are not working.
That's okay. I can do it for you here, Scott. So
okay. No, I just requested. Sorry. I think it changed and I lost control. Now I've got it. To SmartTrash. Sorry. Technology is used to create a method for reducing the cost and problems and environmental impacts of large compactor pickups. These are roll-off compactors that are dispatched on a point-to-point basis, i.e. a waste hauler or recycling vendor is dispatched to pick up the container, empty it, and then return it. We've turned collection from a scheduled service to a just-in-time service. We're the controls. Their controls aren't working. Okay, sorry. Thank you, Colin. I'm going to just have to go next slide. We believe we're the premier provider of this type of technology in the world. We have clients from Singapore to Tel Aviv, all around the world. Literally, we're deployed anywhere where there's packet data wireless service available. So a few places where we can't do it is a place like North Korea that doesn't have a packet data network. Our clients include the largest theme park in the world, the largest club store in the world, the largest furniture store in the world, largest airport in the world. I can go on and on. All these clients, their intent and the results are to reduce their costs, problems, and environmental impact of their compactor pickups. Next slide. The way we go about doing this is SmartTrash. The technology collects data on the compactor, and literally everything that compactor does, from the second it's turned on till the second it's shut down. So we collect how hard the machine's working, that would be the energy usage, how long it's working, the cycle time, how many times the start button's been pushed, and all that data is sent through the cloud back to our servers. Setting up SmartTrash is pretty simple. Anybody that has a compactor typically has a tech who's responsible for maintenance of that machine. That technician's fully qualified to install the SmartTrash technology. It's very simple. And in fact, even an electrician, anybody that is qualified to deal with electrical circuits could install the SmartTrash system and do. So we have a lot of plant electricians who install the kit. Once the SmartTrash technology is set up, this is a piece of hardware that goes on the compactor itself. It starts sending data back through a wireless packet data network to our servers, that's SmartTrash servers in the cloud. And the SmartTrash technician on the other end is looking at that data and calibrates that individual compactor. Each machine operates a little bit differently, and trash is not homogeneous. Typically, it's heterogeneous, except in cases like when you're dealing with cardboard. But even cardboard is not homogeneous. You can have we call domestic cardboard that's produced mainly for food manufacturers in Canada and the US. The higher quality cardboard is denser, versus import cardboard would be cardboard that would come from places like, you know, South America or the Far East. That cardboard's flimsier and it packs different. So once the technician looks at the data, they calibrate the machine, and once that calibration's done, it usually takes a couple collection cycles. It can be put onto an automatic pickup schedule using SmartTrash technology. We can go on to the next slide, please.
Scott, just for our layman listeners out there, when we're talking about packet data, we mean cellular phone, right? So anywhere where there's
Correct.
cell phone service.
Yes,
that means
yeah,
that,
wireless, yeah, wireless cell phone service is the common usage.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, anywhere there's
I
cell
have
phone
control
service.
now. So
Perfect.
okay. So this is what this current generation of SmartTrash looks like. The box right in the front is the standard kit. The reason why there's two wires coming out of this box instead of a single one, the single one connects to the compactor power pack. The second one is going to an RFID scanner box, which is in the back. So SmartTrash can also be not only monitor how the compactor is operating, how full it is, but it can also be used to control the compactor. In fact, we call this iteration of the compact or the SmartTrash monitor the RCH remote control hub. So it can be hooked to multiple devices that can control other things. So again, like access to the compactor. SmartTrash, we've never found a compactor manufactured by anybody in the world that cannot, our technology cannot be fitted to and monitor or enter control. So it works with hydraulic ram type compactors. That's compactors that use hydraulic cylinders, a hydraulic pump driven by electric motor that pushes that cylinder. Hydraulic pre-crushers, which are large machines that have a big, huge metal plate where the ram crushes material against that metal plate. We work on those. Or auger style compactors. These are screw type compactors. It's a relatively newer technology that's quite effective, let's say, for example, in compacting cardboard. We have a number of clients that do this. You'll find auger compactors in the States, in Australia, where some of our clients are in Europe. SmartTrash sends its data out to 24/7 operation. It's as long as the compactor is turned on, compactor works, or the SmartTrash monitor works off the power on the compactor, SmartTrash is on. And so we're recording the just the basic electric function. So when somebody turns it off, literally we record an entry. We can't transmit it because we don't have any power. But when they turn it back on, we'll know exactly when the compactor was turned off and when it was turned on. To the point when the start button's pushed. Every 0.2 of a second, we're measuring the current draw of the electric motor that's driving the machine. That data is all collected, thank you, to determine how full the compactor is or the state of the compactor. So every time the start button's pushed, we record that as a run. Every time the door is opened, you can record that as a load, or a hydraulic lifter is used. You can record that as load. So compactors, if they're not run, are not effective. And that's one of the things we found. Oh, my compactor is not working really well. It's because people aren't pushing the start button. They're loading it up with material, but not pushing the start button. The more you run the compactor, more effective it is. Till it gets to a certain point where the horsepower or the output, the kilowatt hours, the maximum energy that compactor can output, it reaches its maximum. You can't densify the material anymore. For some reason, let me see here. Okay, I got to use the mouse. It went back. Colin, you're going to just have to switch for me. I apologize. For some reason, this remote control is not working. Worked earlier. So the data collected off the machine, remember we mentioned wireless data, every 5 minutes it sends its data back to our servers. We don't do it more often than that because this data is like fresh bread. If it's hot out of the oven, 5 minutes is just as good as if it, in fact, it's probably better. You don't want to burn your mouth. And this is due to just the cost savings. So every 5 minutes it'll send its data back. So in essence, you're seeing when you go into the application, a real-time view of the data. So let's go to the next slide. And there, if you have an iPad, an Android pad, iPhone, Android phone, desktop computer, Linux, Windows, Mac, you can see how your compactor is functioning. When's the last time it was run? If you have the RFID system, you can see who ran it. You can see how hard it's working. All that data is used to optimize your pickups. So the system is a robot. Think of artificial intelligence, an algorithm that looks at this data and will do a prediction of when it's going to fill up, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to predict when it will be full. So on a Wednesday afternoon, it looks like the compactor's full. It will ask for a pickup for, let's say, Friday morning, because the waste hauler or that recycler has to get 24 hours notice. If they can do it within a 4-hour notice, it would ask for a pickup on Thursday. And so this algorithm looks at not only the compactor and how it's functioning, but also the operational environment it's operating in. The vendors work on Sundays. If it doesn't, and they may need to pick it up on Saturday, or it will make the decision, I can go on to Monday. So let's go on to the next slide. So our technology is fully compatible. We can work with any cellular network anywhere in the world. So like here in the US, you have 2 major vendors that use incompatible technologies, Verizon, AT&T. Now T-Mobile's the 3rd major vendor. AT&T and T-Mobile use the same technology, but Verizon doesn't. But we can work on either one of those networks. It uses the power from your existing compactor. If you have a compactor, which is prevalent in Europe, a low voltage compactor, 24 volt DC, or in the US, 120 volt AC, or even some places they use 240 volt AC compactors. SmartTrash will work off of those. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. The kit we ship, it's the same one. It'll monitor all the different functions. The amount of detailed information that we provide is unmatched. There's no way somebody at a remote site, for example, can monitor that machine and know the amount of information that we're able to collect off of it. For example, one of our largest customers is used to manually write down pressures on a log every time somebody ran it. So they had to require somebody to stand there and write that pressure down. Really expensive when you think about what that person's being paid. And we still save that customer over 23% on their actual pickups when SmartTrash technology was installed. And that's not including that 23% was just on pickup costs, not including the avoided labor costs that they were wasting by trying to collect this information. So SmartTrash is smarter than any human by far because of the amount of data it can collect. And it allows us to go back. We collect a lot of data. The smarts in SmartTrash is not just in that remote box, it's in the cloud. We're constantly able to optimize our algorithms based upon a learning experience. We kept the smarts where we can change it easily, not at that remote device. That the detailed information allows you to diagnose problems. I mentioned the turnoff, one of the most common problems people with compactors have. My compactor's not working. They call up, you can immediately look in SmartTrash and see, oh, it didn't communicate within the last 5 minutes. Somebody turned the power off the compactor, turn it on. Call us back if you still have a problem. You never hear back from them. You just saved a service call of a vendor going out there and turning on the disconnect to the compactor. And they'll probably make up some excuse of why it wasn't working because you'll get mad because somebody just had to turn the power on to get it to work. SmartTrash helps you avoid those kind of things. We can diagnose other kind of problems. So you can even track the number of cycles and count them and so forth. So going on to the next slide. it works. It doesn't work for me to do this. Sorry. This is some of the detailed data that you can see in SmartTrash if you go into the application. It's not necessary to do this, to look at it, but you can. And that blue jagged line is the actual energy, or think of it as kilowatt hours. It's the work being put into the container over time. And you see it's going up over time, and it gets to that dotted line. That dotted line is just a representation of when certain thresholds will occur. And then where the line goes down, where it says about Tuesday on this graph, is where the compactor was emptied. And then that lower line is the energy levels on an empty compactor. So this is what SmartTrash is doing. It's monitoring this data that's being collected every 0.2 of a second. The amp draw, that's how we end up with kilowatt hours. The amp draw every 0.2 of a second is recorded. It's used to generate this graph, and then that graph is the data in that graph is looked at. This is a human representation, so you can see when these occur. And then you can automate the pickups based upon certain parameters. So this is what our tech does. When they're calibrating the machine, they'll look at this energy profile over a couple pickups. They'll get a weight ticket, and they'll say, oh, I got 8,000 kilos. That's my target. Boom, let's set our thresholds for this number of runs, this energy level, these conditions, so forth. So we can go on to the next slide, please. So the SmartTrash is a robot, and this is an important distinction. The goal is here to automate everything for you, but any person and or robot needs to be managed. So you go to a factory, a car factory with lots of robots, there's engineers there that are constantly working on these robots, making sure they're functioning within the proper parameters and dealing with them if something goes wrong. And so RecycleSmart uses SmartTrash to manage your compactor pickups. All this data is available to their techs, so they can sit down and decide, oh, this is the optimum time to pick this up. Or we've got a mechanical problem with this compactor. The cylinders are bottoming out, and so we're seeing a huge energy spike, which will lead to premature failure of this machine. This compactor needs to be set back to factory specs or readjusted so it doesn't shorten its life expectancy. Or you can just, something's gone wrong, and SmartTrash will alert you outside the normal parameters. For example, you can, this management service, you can set an alert to say, I've got an extraordinary number of runs in a certain period of time, let's say in a 24-hour period. Normally this compactor is run 50 times in a day, and all of a sudden it's run 150 times. That the SmartTrash technician who's managing your account can get an alert to say, look at me. Something's gone awry here. And for example, in a grocery store, this is a pretty common occurrence, and this is why this alert came about. Freezers break, and so all of a sudden the store has to throw away all of this product that's now out of compliance. It's not safe to sell. And the last thing that they think about is calling their waste company and saying, oh, I'm going to be loading an extraordinary amount of trash in this period of time. They're just trying to figure out how to get all this stuff out of there, get that freezer repaired and get it restocked so they can keep their sales up. The last thing I think about, oh, I packed out my compactor. Well, RecycleSmart gets that alert if they use this function at that client, and they'll know to call up and ask what happened, and they'll find out the freezer broke, and then it goes, well, we'll get a pickup scheduled for tomorrow morning. We'll call the waste hauler right away, so they can avoid the problem of you now having a loading dock, if you're Mr. Client, having a loading dock that's full of garbage, etc. So, now I'm going to switch RecycleSmart. Robert can tell you about how they use SmartTrash.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott, very much for that overview. And we're going to talk a little bit now about how RecycleSmart uses SmartTrash as a tool with our clients. And like Scott mentioned, the system is great. It works well, but the human side of it is also what gives us the extra power. So that human expertise, watching over the robots, which is a great analogy I like from the car plant. You still have to have a few humans in there so the robots don't go rogue and start disassembling things or going for coffee breaks unattended. So next, I'd like to introduce Robert Finn, the IoT Operations Manager at RecycleSmart. And Robert has been with the RecycleSmart team for 2 years, and he is responsible for managing the entire fleet of IoT devices, from installation to optimization of containers and compactors. So sensors, compactor monitors, all things smart is Robert's responsibility here at RecycleSmart. Robert has a background in accounting and logistics and recently is Green Belt certified in Lean Six Sigma. So a lean expert here talking about optimization. So we're in good hands. So I'm going to turn over the controls to you here, Robert, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Scott, and thank you so much, Colin. So Scott pretty much explained the technical aspect of the SmartTrash monitor and how it's going to be useful for clients who try to put them on their compactors. So what I will be primarily focusing on is answering number one, why would you rather monitor your compactor instead of putting it on a fixed schedule? And then secondly, how this is achieved. So if we go to the next slide.
Yep. I'll advance for here, one sec. Perfect.
So why monitor compactors? Some people might think that, okay, if I put it on a fixed schedule, it goes every week, every 2 weeks, I don't have to worry about it, then I have a safe peace of mind. Why do I need to monitor the compactors? First of all, the obvious reason is the financial benefit. The amount of money that we are able to save for our clients is just tremendous. And then secondly, we talk about the operational benefits. So in the next couple of slides, I'm just going to explain how we achieve this goal from installation to finally the cost savings.
I'm giving you the mouse there so you can drive. The freedom is yours.
So then, this is kind of like the life cycle of how a compactor would go through. So either a new compactor or an existing compactor, as Scott mentioned, it doesn't really matter what type of compactor it is, the SmartTrash monitor will work on them. So once we get that on the compactor, the next thing it goes through the optimization process. Finally, we're able to do some maintenance work on a daily or a monthly basis, and that finally leads to the cost savings.
And Robert, when we're talking about cost savings on compactor monitors, really we're talking about less truck trips. So instead of picking up could be a potentially half empty or completely empty compactor, you're using the SmartTrash system to make sure that it's getting picked up when it's optimized and not sending a truck out when really you don't have to.
Yes, and also there's when the compactor itself has some issues, people think that the compactor is full and then they want to request a pickup. But we're able to notice that this is not actually a full compactor, but it's actually, as Scott said, somebody just pressed the stop button or something really simple. They might give an impression that compactor is full. So we just try to avoid unnecessary pickups as well.
Gotcha. Okay, so this is almost like the check engine light on my car, but you can remotely monitor and say, hey, by the way, you just left the gas cap off, tighten up the gas cap and your check engine light will go off. You don't need to come in and have a technician do an expensive service call when it could just be the e-stop button or maybe someone flicked the breaker.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. Then let's see how we go through this process. So the first thing is we do a data collection. So we collect data from the compactor itself. So what type of compactor it is, what is the size, what is the material going in, whether it is waste, organic, whether it's wet or dry, or whether it's just basically cardboard or single stream. So depending on the type of material that goes into the compactor affects the kind of settings that we would have to put in. Then we want to know the usage. So how frequently is the compactor being used? Sometimes the compactor, like some customers will wait until the very end of the day. They have this whole huge mountain of garbage and then just run it all through the compactor. On the other hand, there are people who uses the compactor during the day or as the day goes by. So depending on how the compactor is used on the site level, it might affect the way the compactor works. And then finally, we check the weight. So the image that we have here is an example when you have a 30-yard waste compactor. So currently, this compactor is going monthly 1.5 tons in January, 2.8 tons in February, and then the frequency is like 4.3 as you see. However, for a 30-yard compactor for waste, we believe that it can go at least minimum of 5 tons, which will probably go once a month. So even from this point, you can see how many savings you can make from reducing the number of pickups that happens within a month.
Wow, okay, so I noticed here we've got a typo in our month names, but January. So 4 pickups was what they would have done but with monitoring down to 1, 3 pickups with monitoring down to 1. So quite a significant reduction in hauls.
It is, yeah. And the issue is that the customers do not necessarily know when the compactor is full. So they just put it on a fixed schedule. They think it's full. It comes back, and when you look at the weight is way low. And most of them don't even know the actual weight target that their compactor can take.
Right. No, that makes sense. So yeah, just that knowledge about what should be able to fit in there and then optimizing towards that goal.
Yes. Then the next stage we go through is the optimization process. So the first stage in that is determining preliminary targets that we will set and then gradually making sure that we reach to the optimal target. So with this example here, we have the black dotted line. That is what we call the fill target. So basically, we set the compactor to be full at 80% of the compactor. Depending on the type of material, it could be 80 or 85%. And then the blue dotted line is the trigger target. So the trigger target is set in when, depending on the amount of time the hauler requires to get it picked up. So for example, if a hauler requires a 24-hour notice, we might set the trigger target to be the 80% of the fill target, so that within that period, it would have achieved the goal that we set it for. If, for example, a hauler requires 48 hours, we would lower that trigger target a little bit so that by the time it actually gets completed, it would have achieved the goal. And then secondly, we set the fill target not to be 100% of the compactor, but 80%, because in reality, there are situations where there was a snow that happened, that the haulers were not able to get to the compactor, or sometimes the hauler just missed the compactor, just like that. So that if that situation happened, there is still that extra 20% room to take the extra load before the pickup actually takes place. And then the final thing is the days target. So as we fully optimize it, and then we are able to track on average how many days does it take. Sometimes if our monitor, for example, fails and then we are not getting any data, we can fall onto those days targets and say, okay, for the past 6 months, this compactor at optimal level is going, say, 15 days or 17 days. So we will use that as like a fallback option until we get the monitor running again. In this situation, we are always in control of making sure that the compactor gets serviced all the time. Then next, we go through the analysis process. So we are checking pretty much everything about the compactor. So the weight performance, the hauler performance, and we look at different high-risk. So the weight performance, we have different categories. Either the compactor is within the target, under target, or above target. By analyzing this, we are able to optimize it to make sure that all the compactors go through becomes within that target level that we are hoping for. And so if a new or compactor comes in, we track the weight over a period of time and adjust the settings until we get to that optimal level. The same thing goes with even the hauler performance. We are also tracking which hauler is doing great in getting the compactors picked up on time, which haulers always have this consistency messing up the compactors. That information also helps us to determine, even though the hauler is saying they need 24 hours, but in reality, they get it done in 48 hours, so that we can adjust our system and then adjust our trigger setting. So we avoid having packed out compactors or garbage all over the place.
Gotcha. So you're monitoring the weight of the compactor to make sure it doesn't go too heavy, because you can get into pack out or overweight situation. And then as well, that hauler performance, meaning if I book a haul, how often does the hauler actually show up in the day and time when they say they're going to versus when they don't? So your incident here is 173 hauls that went on time and 5 that were late, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's kind of monitoring the vendor side as well as how your compactor is doing for weight.
Yes. So in that way also, if we have a new customer, there are haulers that we can recommend that these ones have had a consistent good track on meeting the deadlines as well.
Right. So you could tell me if you really want your garbage picked up on time, use this hauler, not that other hauler, because they frequently are late.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So that's the whole point. And then lastly, we sometimes look at high risk. So the high risk is just letting us know that these compactors are either going too high or they are haulers that are just consistently messing up their pickups. And as some of you may know, there are weight limitations in certain cities. So we try to make sure that the weight goal is within that regulations within that city as well.
Gotcha. Okay, and you can set that up city by city depending on the local regulations.
Exactly, yes.
Right, okay.
So that covers up the fully optimization. Then we go through the maintenance. So one thing that we also do, which is something that the SmartTrash monitor helps us, is to help maintain the customer's compactors. We have the pickup and return info. One of the things in my past years working with different customers is they really want to know when the compactor is being picked up and sometimes when the compactor gets returned. For example, some sites need to block the area where the compactor is so that they don't have a car parked in front of it, or they are using the loading dock of their compactor for other deliveries. So the SmartTrash monitor is able to notify the customer when the pickup was made and when the bin gets returned. In that way, they are not fully blocking their loading dock the whole day. The second thing that we do for the customers is we have what we call the cycle time and the total time. So in just summary, when the compactor is run, the amount of time it takes for the ram to completely pack the garbage and comes back is what we call the cycle time. And it does that a couple of times. So that becomes the total time. So for the example that I have below, for that specific compactor, the cycle time is about 37.5 seconds, and then the total time is like 227 seconds. Then when there is a jam, what it will tell us that we will see that the cycle time starts short cycling. So when we look at the energy level and we know that the compactor is not even half full, yet it is short cycling, it gives us indication that there is a jam. So when a customer calls us and says, hey, I think my compactor is full, I need it hauled, we can look at it and we can tell them, no, it is not full, there is a jam in there, just empty the hopper, run it down, empty a few times, that will clear the jam, and then it will go back to normal. So this helps us to save unnecessary pickups just because we are able to see what is happening on the site level. And then the last thing is the event alert. So Scott already mentioned that the monitor sends us alerts. For example, if the power is shut down, if the emergency button has been pushed, if the door is not closed properly, we get these alerts and it let us know what is happening to the compactor. So if a person calls us and says, hey, my compactor is not working, we can at least know exactly what it is. If it isn't part of those basic troubleshooting issues, then we can request a technician to come and look at. But by being able to see that front line, what the compactor is, what is happening on the compactor level, it helps to avoid unnecessary services that could have been just a simple push button. And then to finally end my presentation, I just go back to the main 2 points. Financial and operational benefits. Monitoring your compactor with regards to having it on a fixed schedule, we are able to reduce the number of pickups. Reducing that enables us to save a lot of money. We avoid unnecessary hauls by one, knowing exactly when the compactor gets full, and secondly, being able to determine if it is a jam or if it is just a technical issue and not necessarily the compactor getting full. And then finally, we are able to prevent packouts and overweight, especially with cities that have weight limitations. So that even if there is a long weekend or a holiday coming up, we are able to do some predictive analysis and prevent the compactor packing up.
Great, thanks Robert for that overview. We are now going to go to the Q&A session. There's a Q&A button just at the bottom of the webinar screen, so you can click on that and it will bring up a little Q&A box. You can type your questions in there. And we've had a couple come in as we've been running through here, so I'm going to get to those first. So the first question is, why not monitor pressure? So I think this is going back to hydraulic pressure and some of the other monitoring systems out there that monitor hydraulic pressure compared to SmartTrash, which is monitoring the energy or electrical draw. So Scott, do you want to maybe talk about kind of this is like the Chevy Ford debate, I feel like.
Yeah, I think it's even, it's more deeper than that. Colin mentioned earlier that American Trash Management is the parent company of SmartTrash. And American Trash Management, similar company to RecycleSmart in the States, has been managing clients' waste disposal since 1990. And we first started out, we thought the same way RecycleSmart does, is that putting compactors from a scheduled service to just-in-time service was an easy way to save our clients lots of money. So we bought a third-party monitor, and it was pressure-based. And it worked okay. It saved money until it failed. And when it failed, it caused a pump head failure on the compactor, and we're talking about thousands of dollars in repair bills. It wiped out all the savings. And so we meaning American Trash Management at the time, this problem was presented to the board, and we scratched our heads. And one of the board members was the founder of a publicly traded electronics company in Silicon Valley that manufactured test and measurement equipment. Big company. And Gene goes, you know what? This is the wrong technology. We should be doing this like this. And he suggested that we start monitoring the electric use on the electric motor. He goes, that's what is doing the work. The hydraulic pump is being driven by that electric motor. That's the primary thing. And he goes, there's several benefits of doing that. One, we're going to get better data. Two, we're going to use a technology that's non-invasive, i.e. it doesn't tap into the hydraulic system, introduce a point of failure. Hydraulics, the way you measure hydraulic pressures, you use a pressure transducer. It's a little metal diaphragm that stretches and the resistance changes. And then you measure that change in resistance to give you your pressure. Well, that metal diaphragm can fail. It fatigues over time and will break. So pressure switches break on compactors. That's because they use a metal diaphragm, no different than that pressure transducer. And so we developed our own. We went into business because the vendor that we had was unwilling to change their technology. They said they couldn't improve what they had, and we were wrong. So ATM developed their own technology on their own. And as Colin said, we're on our 6th generation. We spun off SmartTrash because then we started having people that saw the technology and go, we want to buy this, we want to use it too. And so SmartTrash came into existence. So pressure versus electrical is one, we're measuring the primary work source, electric motor. Two, it allows you to measure auger style compactors that don't use hydraulics. It's cheaper, and it's using a technology that everybody's familiar with. Every building that has electricity that's bought from electric power company has the same core technology that we use on their electric meter. That's how the electric company knows how much electricity you're using. They're measuring your current draw in that building. So simpler, cheaper, more reliable data that allows us to collect more data.
Thanks, Scott. You made a good case there for not using pressure, and we can definitely vouch for that. Is that the pressure monitors, they do work, but we've had much better luck with the energy monitoring monitors in terms of long-term reliability and getting it to work. Next question coming in, maybe over to Robert, because I think this one here, they're asking about your job security. Why does this require human intervention and monitoring? Couldn't you set up AI or machine learning, which are two of those catchphrases that everyone likes to use? So Robert, maybe explain why you have a job, after all. This system is great. It does provide a lot of data, but why that human touch for the managed services?
Yeah, I think Scott talked a little bit about it in his presentation, that even though you might have a robot, you definitely need a person to manage that robot. So why do we need someone to actually be there to make sure this works? First of all, the haulers that are supposed to pick up the compactor are not always reliable. We've had customers that come in and say, oh, I have this monitoring system. It will send out the request. No one shows up. And then they didn't have anyone to go out to go and make sure that this hauler was actually, why they missed it, what was the issue. And that is one of the main advantage of having a person to make sure that this is actually working, because we are able to see what happened, whether there is a weather alert coming up, So we know that there's a possibility that the hauler might not be able to make it in time because of the weather conditions or the road is not great, or so we can just send it earlier than it's supposed to. And also we are able to avoid that inconsistencies. So sometimes machines do break down, right? Even though we have the best machine, they do break down. And when that happens, we are there to, that's why we have the day's target as a fallback, so that we are able to continue keep providing the regular services until we are able to put it back on track. So if I'm to go on, there are so many reasons why we would definitely need a person, but primarily there's always going to be issues with a machine fully managing something. That is why we do need a person there managing the machine that is actually doing the work.
Right, yeah, so that human touch is still key, and I think self-driving cars are another good example where you can use a lot of automation, but you probably want a human to have kind of the final say on whether or not you're going to make that turn. And the same with the compactors. We can do a lot of automation, but that human touch just gives us that extra bit of optimization and a little bit of smarts. Thanks very much, everyone, for your great questions, and thanks to Robert and Scott for joining us today. As a reminder, this webinar is going to be recorded and will be on our website. So if you think anyone else in your organization would like to tune in and get the information, it will be available as a recording. Thanks very much, Robert and Scott, and we look forward to talking to many of you guys about making your compactors smart in the future.